But we are going to break it down once again for everybody to understand what we did from the scratch. Okay, so just have patience, take a cup of tea, and enjoy others. Now, students want the explanation of the equation S is equals to negative b plus or minus, yeah, square roots b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's what they want. The general quadratic equation, negative b plus or minus square, square root of b squared minus 4ac. But we know the general quadratic expression is given as as squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0, such that our a shouldn't be equal to 0. Why? Why is it that the equation is not supposed to be equal to 0? Because if ax squared, if a is 0, then we're going to have 0 multiplying this plus bx plus c equals 0. So our equation ps plus c equals 0 will be linear and therefore does not conform to the quadratic equation. Yeah, that is not equal to the quadratic equation. So that is the reason why we say the equation is such that a shouldn't be equal to 0. So if ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, as we divide through by a, we're going to have a dividing this and that and that and that, so that we can write this equation as x squared plus bx over a plus c over a is equals to over a is equals to 0. Okay, this once again we can write it as x squared plus bx over a is equals to negative c over a. What have we done? Or what we have done is we have shifted a to the right hand side of the equation. That is why we have it to be equal to negative c over a. But that is not the end. If we want to complete the square of this equation, then we need to halve this and square it and add to both sides of the equation. So we say by completing the square, we add b over 2a squared to both sides of the equation Okay, so as we saw earlier, our quadratic expression as we deduce up to this point is x squared plus b x over a is equal to negative c over a. So we say by completing the square we add b. Okay, let us change to different colors so we can understand it. So we add b over 2a squared to both sides. So b over 2a squared to both sides of the equation. Isn't that looking beautiful? Fantastic. So what can we do? If we look at this and that, we can simplify these equations. How do we simplify these equations? Okay, we can do some factorization. Okay, factorization, and the simplification. Okay, and the simplification. All right. So since we have our equation x squared plus bx over a plus b over 2a squared equals to negative c over a plus b over 2a squared. Okay, when we put this one in composite. This will be x plus b over 2a all squared. That is equals to b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Well, if you can take time to work it out, you will see that that is where you can reach. And if you do it well, your answer will be correct to this point. Okay, now the next thing we do is we take square roots to both sides. Okay, so square root to both sides. Okay, so our square root to both sides. So our expression that we've written so far is x plus b over 2a all squared is equals to b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Okay, so we're going to take square roots of both to both sides. We're going to take square roots of both sides. So which is square root of this all and the square root of that. Yes, we know that for this, because of the square over here, this could be written like the x over b over 2a, because the square root, which is the whole expression term raised to the power half multiplied by 2 will be equals to 1. So we know this is plus or minus, okay, the 4a squared. When we take square root of 4a squared, this we can expand it and say b squared minus 4ac, okay, and this square root of 4a squared. Okay, now because this is equals to 2a, okay, when we put it back, put this back into this side, then our equation can be written as x plus b over 2a is equals to plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. What do we see? We have this and that. So since they are the same, then we can say that this and this can be put together. And when b over 2a crosses that, this one will be x equals to negative b over 2a plus or minus square root of the b squared minus 4ac. Yeah, so putting them together, then we'll say that x is equals to negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac, once again, all divided by 2. That is the proof of this equation. So this beautiful equation can now be beautifully written in this way. I will say negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Very beautiful. So that is all it is about this quadratic equation. Okay, let's recapitulate. Okay, let's recap. Now, this is the equation that students want explanation for. How on earth that we're supposed to use this equation to factorize every quadratic equation. Okay, this Almighty Quadratic Equation. And this started by we saying that as squared plus bs plus c equals to 0. Okay, such that a is not equal to 0. Then somebody asked me, but sir, how did we derive this equation, this a squared plus bs plus c itself? Okay, then this was my explanation. Look at it. We know that quadratic equation in generally can be written as the x squared minus the sum multiplied by x plus products is equals to 0. If alpha, okay, let me go down and explain it. So x squared minus the sum multiplied by x plus the product of the quadratic equation. So this is the general quadratic expression. Then x squared minus the sum multiplied by x plus the product should be equal to 0. So if alpha and beta are the roots of the quadratic equation, okay, then we can say that the sum, which is alpha plus beta, is always given as negative b over a, which we can further explain it. And alpha beta is equal to c over a. So when we substitute this equation, okay, back to the expression term, okay, then we say that x squared minus the sum, which is alpha plus beta, x plus alpha beta is equal to 0. Okay, so when we substitute in the respective variables, then we say x squared minus negative b over a x plus alpha beta, which is what, c over a, is equal to 0. Then this can be written as minus will be positive, so x squared plus b over a x plus c over a is equal to 0. So as you multiply through by a, by a, such that a is not equal to 0 as usual, then our expression will be ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So that is how this equation was derived. Then, okay, so going back up, this equation is the starting point to the almighty quadratic formula. So we say that we divide through by a, okay? We divide through by a such that a is not equal to 0. Then that's we did that, we got to this point, okay? We go to this point, and we say by completing the square of the equation, we have the b over a, and we square it to both sides of the equation. Okay, then we go to this point here, and that, as demarcated in red, so we added b over 2a squared to both sides of the equation. So after factorization and simplification, we got to this point where we said x plus b over 2, okay, this x plus b over 2 all squared is equals to 1. We expand this one, okay, this one, okay, negative c over a plus b over 2a all squared. Then we're going to have b squared minus 4ac, all over 4a squared. Then we said we got to take square root of both sides to the equation. So as you can see in red again, you know that when we take square root of a square, it ends up to becoming the variable or the value itself. So that's the reason why we're going to have x plus b over 2a. Okay, also bear in mind that square root of that, we can separate it. Because b squared minus 4ac all over square root of 4a squared. And we know the square root of 4a squared is what, 2a. Okay, so we substituted it back to this equation. Okay, now we have this. Okay, now further substitution, further expansion gave us this expression term. When we realize that two a's are the same, we put them together and we got to our general almighty quadratic equation. Anyway, thank you for your time, and we're looking forward to see you around because we're about to resolved and break down complicated equations so easy that everybody can understand it at all. But well, what we did today, if you seems not to understand it, maybe we are on the third gear or fourth gear, you can comment on the comment section and explain to us or draw our attention that you didn't understand it. Then we'll change gear and we'll break it down on a different level that everybody can understand it. Thank you very much, and we thank God for your life. Have a beautiful day and see you around. Thank you.